Barbara held the phone against her ear, not able to take in what she had just heard. The deafening silence kept her still. Finally replacing the receiver, she felt her arm still shaking. This had gone too far now. Was it Creeps fulfilling his promise? Slowly the stillness dawned on her. She turned and headed out the room, back to her own. Even as she lay there on her bed, the words echoed in her mind. Get out. They had said. Get out before you die. As she slowly drifted off into a deep sleep, Barbara found herself in some woods. It was almost dark and cloudy. Sounds of birds up in the trees could be heard. Feeling alone and afraid, she had a sensation as though an unknown watcher was stalking her. Echoing around came the sound of shouting, dogs barking. Are they after me? I don't understand. Bushes moved at her side. As if driven by an unknown force, she ran deeper into the thick trees. The blackness seemed to close all in around her, like a thick mist slowing her pace. At that moment the hand wrapped around her ankle, forcing her fall on the ground. She got to her knees and looked around. There was a tree house nearby, its black form blocking out the moonlight. The tall figure, their face clothed in shadow, towered over her like a giant. The air was filling with the sweet sound of giggling. She screamed as the shadow fell on her. The next thing Barbara knew, she was gasping for breath in her own bed. Only to the same ringing sound, it was the phone ringing. Yawning loudly, she forced herself out of bed. I'm going to give that creep a piece of my mind. Going back into the empty room, she picked the receiver and shouting, all right, you creep, you can't frighten me. Hey, Mr. Hoffman's voice said. I didn't think the house was that bad. Barbara's face turned a little red, slightly embarrassed. Sorry, Dad. I thought you were someone else. Isn't it a little early to be calling? Barb, it's gone 9. He paused. Already stirring up the local boys, are we? He choked. So what do you really think of the house? Oh, it's really great. It's the worst place I've ever been in, nice and big. Jake's really taken to the place. Well, he would, wouldn't he? So when's the rest of our things coming? The van will be round tomorrow. I take it you're looking forward to school. Everything's been arranged. I spoke to the supervisor, Miss Falconer, when I finalized the deal for the house. Kind of, she sighed. I've already made a friend here, he's going to be giving me a lift. That's the way my barbed wire. He laughed. Is your mother there? I hate it when he calls me that. Looking up at the small window, she could see it was morning. I must have overslept. Hold on a second, I'll call her. Going down the stairs, she called out for her. Mum, the phone, it's Dad. A moment Mrs. Hoffman ran in from the back, bolting up the stairs. Not even saying good morning. Barbara headed back into her room. She slipped on some jogging trousers and sweatshirt. Running downstairs through to the kitchen, she found Jay was sitting at the table, brooding over half a sausage. Morning, sis. I take it was Dad on the phone. Got it in one. She stepped to the table and pulled up a chair. At that moment she got the impression of her brother's prying eyes. What? Oh, I'm just figuring out, what drives a person like you to go out into the middle of an electric storm, in the middle of the night, and have a go on that old swing? And what were you doing out of bed? Barbara cross-examined him. I never went to bed after you left me. I stayed awake, looking for animals. He took his last bit of breakfast. Then, there you were, walking out into the wind and rain, swinging. It's hard to explain. I don't even know if I can. He'll just laugh at me, she figured. I just had the urge. Jake's face broke into a smile. An urge? Well, that confirms something I've thought from day one. And that is, you are so weird. He started laughing. So what gave you this spooky urge? Is the swing haunted? Oh, will you please shut it? You don't know a thing, pea-brain. I know. His gaze passed from her to the window. Why don't we take a walk into the forest? Just you and me, who knows, we may see a ghost. All right, she agreed. As long as you leave me alone for the rest of the week. Do we have a deal? She placed out her hand. Jake got to his feet and shook it. Sounds good to 6 months. Going to be on the phone for the next hour. As brother and sister made their way through the uncut grass, Barbara stole a glance at the swing. It was still, no motion at all. It wasn't going to do it while Jake is around. The weak sunlight hardly penetrated the thick layers of leaves and branches. Only thin beams revealed small insects flying around in the still morning air, their feet crunching on soggy wet foliage. "I wonder how far back these woods go?" Jake asked. He looked from side to side. "Or how much of it belongs to the owners of the house? We could have a swimming pool put in, or even another house." "Well, there's a fence running around it. When I went into town, I saw the old servant's house." "Servants?" He laughed. "Some people have all the luck. How come we don't get them? After all, the house is ours now." "Because they're all dead." She watched her brother's expression change. "They were killed in a fire." "Too bad. For you or them." "Both, I guess," Jake reasoned. He turned, peering ahead of him. "What's that?" Without warning he bolted away deeper into the forest. Barbara called after him. "Jake! Jake! What is it?" There was no reply. Jake stopped fooling around. She ordered. What had he seen to make him run off like that? Quickly she followed her brother's trail. There it was, standing right in front of her, an old tree house. The building had been lowered onto the forest floor. Its supports could be seen in the tree above. Light blue paint hardly covered the rotting house. Its front door open. Jake's back was to her. He started bouncing up and down. "The outline looks very familiar to me." "Don't fool around in there," she ordered. "It may be dangerous. The old place is falling to bits." "Oh, come in. It's great in here." Jake turned to face his sister. "I can't imagine why the owners would want to move out." Seeing that he wasn't going to cooperate, she pulled herself together. Barbara climbed the broken stairs inside. It was almost dark apart from the weak daylight coming from the small round windows. "Come on you," she commanded, grabbing his arm. "Mum will be wondering where we've got to." "You're such a spoil sport," Jake groaned as she dragged him down the small ramp. It must have belonged to Sarah Winterfield. And so did the swing. What happened up here that no one likes to talk about? The rest of the day seemed to lag on, since the discovery of the treehouse. In the afternoon they sat round the TV and watched a couple of movies. But the very same question still pondered in her mind.